Wow. It's a nightmare of a friend, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, he was devastated, obviously, relieved. And the funniest thing, when he went to pick it up at the vet, the person who found it was a friend of his from when they were 10 years old. He hasn't seen in 20 years. And they end up going out and getting a drink together at his house and reconvening because of our dog. So it's like a nice, happy, feel-good story at the end.
Yeah. So happy ending there.
Yep.
Great stuff. So it's a good note to start our live session here. People, I can see people are joining, and let's start. I think what we said, we had a chat yesterday, Ryan, and it started to be quite interesting, at least for me. So I said, why don't we continue this live? So we like did a small preparation call yesterday, and we want to really talk today. I don't know if there is the light. Maybe you could put it more light, a little bit more light where you are.
Eventually it gets better. I'm not sure what I need to do.
Yeah, okay. Because
yeah.
Though maybe it's getting very, very dark soon in Portugal. I don't know, but anyway. So we talked, and the topic of the session today is about the day after Corona, and how would the world of sports, and specifically the impact on innovation in sports, and the impact on the stakeholders, on startups, on teams, on clubs, federations, how would this will look like after this global challenge that we are facing will disappear. And I think nobody knows, but we started thinking about the impact of what's happening around us, and maybe I think it's a good opportunity to share it with our community and with the people around us. And people that are listening, please feel welcome to join and even ask some questions. We have here Dovi as well, which will be able to spot them maybe and share with us.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll start by saying that, after, like in any, I feel that there is like a grief around us. And, like any grief, there are stages. And, first of all is the ability to realize what's happened. Then there is the being angry with the situation and why is it happening now? I was in the midst of doing great business, and suddenly, and eventually there will be the stage of acceptance, and then what can be done, and where are we now, and what we can do. And so people are now, I believe, at least in our close circles, are starting to get out of this and start looking at what's happening around us. And one of the things I'm looking, and I can see that there is a big leap in using technology. There is like a big jump, and I even call it like intergeneration collaboration that we couldn't anticipate before. Yeah. So if we look at the Z generation, which is my kid, or Y generation, and then the X generation, the 80s, and the up to the 50s and 60s, the baby boomers, suddenly they're all on Zoom. My father, who used to send me SMS every day, now is suddenly sending me a Zoom link. So something has happened in the using of technology, and it's okay suddenly, because in the past, if you invited somebody for a Zoom, most of the people in my age or even younger said, I'm a person. Yeah, I need the one-on-one. I want to connect with you. I will come 2 hours to Tel Aviv. I will take me half an hour to find the parking, and I will see you in person. And now suddenly it looks like it's okay to talk on Zoom. We had a session yesterday, 12 people. It was open. There was a little bit of intimacy. And suddenly it looks not such a bad idea to do some of the communication. Now, I look at the impact of this, and if we look maybe on a macro level, this is like shifting us forward in time. it's like a time capsule a little bit, moving us forward. And again, I'm not saying it's truth. Yeah, I'm just sharing what I observe, and you know, maybe other people have other thoughts on that. But I can see. Sorry.
I was gonna say, obviously, that digital transformation has been accelerated. You know, it's if you weren't transforming digitally before, you have now, and it's been forced upon you. I saw somewhere, I forget, I don't know who posted it. I think I saw it on LinkedIn. It said, who led the digital transformation in my office? And it said the CEO, the CTO, and then it said, no, COVID-19. And, you know, there were a lot of companies out there that didn't use Zoom or weren't used to working from home. Amir, I know you and I have been working from home all the time, but I'm shocked by some executives. I mean, one who worked at, a very large car manufacturer. She's a senior executive. And she was like, oh my God, I'm going to be working from home. This is crazy. I'm like, it's normal. You know, we've been doing it in the consulting world for a while, but the rest of the world hasn't. And going back to Zoom, you know, the whole world, you know, even if they were on Zoom, they may not have joined from the video. So now that everyone's used to doing the video, you're almost forced to, and more people are talking to each other, to be honest with you. I'm talking to more of my friends now than I was before. And we're actually now jumping on a Zoom call. So it actually is bringing some of us more closer together.
Yeah, you were expect, you know, we're speaking about isolation and, you know, but yeah, we are talking to more and more people now. And this also maybe has some, but I want to come back to what I call the, let's say the consumer cultural leap that I'm talking about. So if this is truth, and more people now are moving to the digital experience, and the customers are okay with communicating like this, what is the impact on our lives, on sports? If this is okay now for people to, you know, would people be more expecting more to stay at home, or would we need more wow impact to drag people out of their homes? So would there be more technologies, great technologies now, because people are okay to see and to work from home and to experience this from home? So maybe in order to get them out, there will be a real wow. If you want them in the mall, it has to be a really wow experience. If you want them in the stadium, it cannot be just a game, because maybe the experience at home will be much better than at the game. So everything needs to go up in terms of the experiences. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, so if we look specifically at sports, and if we look at what's going to happen, I mean, obviously the broadcast is going to take center stage, and that broadcast is going to become more enhanced technically and digitally in multiple ways. To that, what I'm afraid of is that fan experience in stadium is going to be stagnant, and the broadcast is going to significantly exceed it to an extent where I guess I don't want to say afraid, but if we all come back, if the games come back with no fans, how long does that last? Does that last half a season, all season? If that lasts longer than not, let's just put longer at plus or minus 3 months. That gives the broadcasters a significant opportunity to grab market share, to prove that the experience is better at home, where people get used to it. And we could go in and talk about some of those technologies in the broadcast, but you know, the broadcast is going to change significantly. And I saw Mark Cuban talk the other day. It's a great opportunity to tear it down. You know, the broadcast is one of those things, it's just the way it's been forever. You know, back to the 60s, you know, the main channels were on TV, the publication of that TV. Yeah, we've added a little bit of overlays, we've added replay, but it's been the same production for multiple years. You can look at a European soccer game. If you watch the game 20 years ago, it's not that much different today. But
Absolutely.
Now there's an opportunity for that broadcast to really accelerate things.
Okay, so let's discuss this. Let's focus on this, Ryan. What do you think in terms of technologies can be enhanced, you know, when we're looking at the next generation of broadcasting? What can get like, I would say, more speed in being implemented?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure speed of being implemented, but we just look at some of the standard stuff that's out there now. It's just not as popular. You know, look at the various camera angles, 360 camera angles, stuff that Second Spectrum's doing. You know, the various VR, AR that is coming, but it's not quite there yet. You know, there's companies out there that are going to make that in-stadium experience. You can put the goggles on. Well, now is a perfect time to be wearing those goggles. You can pretend like you're in the stadium. So that the technology's there. It's just going to become more popular, in my opinion. Then there's other technologies like what we're doing right now, you know, talking to each other on this Zoom technology. There's, you know, companies like Watch Together and others with the similar technology where we can both be watching the same football game and be talking about it. You can be rooting for one team, I'm rooting for another team. And just like we're talking now, we don't have to be at the game together. We don't have to be on the same couch. You know, it's these technologies that exist today, which I think are going to come to the forefront and almost become, you know, more standard, so to say.
Yeah. So basically, it would probably, as mentioned, it will, you know, allow people more. I would say, people will be more open to allow new experiences and remote and virtual experience to get into the world.
Yeah, if we even use that word more open, let's look at the broadcasters. I think they're going to be more open to try new things. So I had a couple calls with two of my startups just the other day of let's get back in front of the, you know, the NBCs, the Fox, the ESPNs. Now is a perfect time to say, hey, let's trial something. And if we have to trial it, let's trial it now in one of the past games that they're showing. So they're showing reruns. I don't think let's try something right now and let's see what the take up is. There's no reason why you can't use this as a sandbox to get stuff out there and to try it. Now, right now they're struggling to see what's going to happen, but you know, they got to be working too. So in 2-3 weeks time, a month's time, I have a feeling you're going to start to see a lot of new technologies. And I don't want to call it new. I mean, if we look at what the XFL did, there's a lot of stuff the XFL tried to release that I bet it's going to be accelerated right now to an NFL production. And why can't they start to try it, you know, on some of the older games right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you know, when in our preparation call, we spoke about 2 stages before the vaccine will be found. Again, I can't believe I'm talking about this. It's still like being in a movie. Before the vaccine and after the vaccine. Yeah. How do you see, let's say it will take us a year or a year and a half to have a vaccine, which we can all have before we go to see a game in you know, the Champions League game or, you know, wherever we are. How do you see what will happen until then and what will be the impact after? If you can, you know, just share a little bit on that.
I always think of it in 3 stages. I think of it as, you know, when the games come back, and we can almost talk league by league of how we think they're going to come back, but they're going to come back without fans. Let's face that. They're going to come back without fans, some sort of, you know, quarantine. They may also be at a single location, or, you know, I know in the MLB's case, they're talking about playing games at the spring training facilities. So there's a lot of things being put on the table, but, you know, the New York Yankees, if the MLB tried to come back, there's no way we could play a game right now in Yankee Stadium. But the Yankees have a home in Florida, and, you know, they could play down there if they had to, where it's less of an impacted zone. So you got kind of that immediate comeback. I see a massive rush back to the stadium at first. Once you can allow fans, there's going to be a period. I think it's somewhere between, I would say games come back June, July, September at the latest, June at the earliest. And I think we go another 3 months without fans. And that can last up to a year. Who knows? I mean, it's probably going to be at least 3 months because you need to make sure this thing doesn't come back. And then when fans do come back, and I'm still not sure this is post-vaccine or right around the time of the vaccines, it's probably right around that milestone. I think a lot of fans will rush back, but then I think there'll be a massive drop-off. And I think it's a new opportunity from a fan's perspective of cheaper tickets. I think dynamic ticket pricing is going to completely come into play. And I think it's going to be completely based on supply and demand. And there's no reason why a ticket price is what it is today. They don't raise that price because of their cost of the stadium or cost to pay employees. All the US teams, they make all their money on broadcast. So that ticket price is purely based on what people are
mainly the tier 1, tier 2 teams, you mean sports teams?
Yeah, tier 1, I'm talking about the big 4 leagues in the US, you know, all the big leagues. Those ticket prices are 100% arbitrary, and they're 100% based on what a fan will pay. Now, if you look at, let's take some of the more dire predictions of 20 to 30% unemployment. I know a lot of my friends are giving up their season tickets right now. It was nice of the teams in Philadelphia just extended it. I mean, technically the bill was due this month of seeing $24,000, whatever it is. They did extend it out. They said, look, we're going to push this out another month or two. But if you have a choice to pay your mortgage or to pay your season tickets, most people are going to choose to pay the mortgage. Yeah. So there's going to be a giant decline in ticket price demand. Now, I don't think that makes any impact on the clubs because they don't really rely on those ticket prices, and they want a full stadium, in my opinion. So that's why I think it goes back to dynamic ticket prices. At the end, the fan kind of wins because the prices are going to come down. Again, my view.
Yeah. So you think the price of tickets will come down, especially in the big leagues?
I do. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about startups in this. Obviously, you have startups that you're supporting, and we've invested in a few startups, and we have startups in our different accelerators. Some of the startups are facing everybody's facing a very difficult time, but some are really bleeding. And what's your thoughts on that? In terms of their game plan, how should they approach the market now? Because I'm speaking now to some brands and clubs. I find some CEOs that are suddenly available of top clubs, suddenly available to talk. Suddenly they have time. I spoke to a major team in the Bundesliga. Suddenly he says, let's talk about strategy, about innovation. I now have more time. So maybe it's an opportunity for startups to really, because usually it's all about the game. We need to meet to win on the weekend and leave us alone. Maybe now it's an opportunity to talk about those topics, to help the clubs, the federations, the brands to prepare for the day after, because the day after is going to be much more deep, much more digital. I was amazed. I spoke to federations and clubs which are still running on Excels, still don't have a proper CRM system. If what we are discussing here is true, and we made a huge leap into the future in terms of data and digitalization, you need to have the right equipped CRM system in place. Everything has to be connected. It's all like, this Zoom system will probably be connected to everything else you do. So how do you see the startups cooperating here and the opportunities that are available?
Yeah, well, look, let's put the startups in probably three different buckets. There's those that are well-funded and have long runways. There's those startups that apply to almost this environment. Let's say they have an OTT product, an esports product, or a fitness at home, a training product, like something like MyKicks with Amir, I know you're familiar with. They're seeing a massive spike. I mean, stuff like the NBA Global Scout, which is based on what's the hoop thing called? In any event, those things where you can be at your house, isolating and practicing and training on your own, those things are actually doing very well. Obviously, we know esports is booming, but it's those other startups that were just at the beginning in the process of raising money, and how well can they push out that runway? How much can they cut back on costs? I was with one of my startups just in New York City. We were in Union Square meeting with one of his primary investors. This is about 5 weeks ago now. And he was painting for us, hey, you need to really think doom and gloom. This could be horrible. I never envisioned this. I had actually just moved out my fifth sports conference. I feel like I was a trailblazer there. We moved that out 5 weeks ago, but that was because we had more than 250 people attending. So KPMG literally told us, look, if there's more than 250 people at an event on a KPMG facility, try to move it out. And literally that day in New York City, we were sitting down with his main investor, and he's like, look, assume everything just stops. How far can you go and how much runway do you have? I'm like, well, it's not going to stop. And he's like, yeah, well, just imagine it does. And sure enough, he was right, because it did stop. So it's those kind of, again, those three different buckets, those that are kind of funded, which obviously now is a great time to get in front of people. I'm finding I can get a lot more meetings with executives, with sports clubs, with leagues. They definitely have time. Obviously, they're not looking to pay money now, but they're definitely looking for ideas. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity. So you take everything with a glass half full opportunistic mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add that, in terms of the startups, it's a very good opportunity. Some of the startups has got real, I would say, a present from above to relook at their business models.
Mm-hmm.
Because to be frank, some of them were not good anyway, or were not going very far anyway. I'm sorry to be very blunt. So it's an opportunity to relook at the business model, to relook at what we're doing, to do some focus groups, to see if there is something we can do better now. And the other thing is market is changing now, totally. If you had a product with a price, certain price, it's not the same now. We cannot sell the same products in the same pricing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't see this changing, even if we go with a very positive scenario. I tell my team, this is our emergency routine. This is our routine until the end of the year at least. And I think we shifted all our activity to virtual. We now have a virtual accelerator, which we are putting together to deal exactly with the challenges a startup has now, with crisis management, with preparing for the day after. Yeah. What kind of game plan do you have for the day after?
Yeah.
And working with the top mentors one-on-one to crack your business model, to adapt it. And everything has to be changed. The pricing has to be different. Maybe you need to have some more virtual products now, maybe shifting some of your work to the new reality.
Yeah.
So I think for most of the startups, and I agree with you, if startups didn't have now cash for 3-4 months, it's a problem. I know in some of the countries now they give a fairly quick. I saw in Germany, one of our startups just got applied online and got a $15K check straight away into the bank. In some countries, it's more difficult than others, but I know most of the governments will support the startups because they need the startup for the growth in the day after. And I think if we can reduce costs to minimum, work from home, we rework on our business model, on our products, work with top mentors, which really helps us understand and crack the industry and understand the opportunities. Because if, as we discussed, it's going to be now, there will be a lot of remote tools and there will be a boost for the virtual world. How do you adapt your product to the new world? What can you do different to provide value to clubs, to brands, to stakeholders in the sports space? There's so much we can do. And like anything, there is it sounds like a cliche when there is a big challenge, there is a big opportunity. There are needs. There are new needs now that are there. And I think the faster we react, the faster we go from the morning, I would say, process and mindset to a proactive process, reactive reaction to leadership, talking to people, not hiding, not freezing. Talk to your customers, talk to your people around you. I think this is very important. And I always say to my team, the corona will pass. The corona will pass and we will stay. The only question is in what state of mind, in what state we will be. And the way we will be after the corona is determined on what we're doing now and what the actions we are taking now, not conversations and not, I would say, thought about, how it should be or it can be. What are the actions we are doing now? This will determine how we're going to be in the future.
Yeah. So to your point of changing and pivoting, two of the startups I'm working with, one had a live in Stadia product. We shifted that to OTT and he's having some significant success of pushing this out now. You don't even need a live game. The product's called Como, but they're doing live trivia on a daily basis. So we're talking to sports clubs who need to communicate with their fans. They need to communicate every day. Well, why can't we have a live trivia competition every day. And the way this is actually rolling up, it's really cool. So every day there's a competition. You get a winner at the end of the day, and maybe he gets a free jersey or something. But all those winners are going to get invited to that first game back and be at center court that very first game back, and then have a trivia off amongst themselves, and the whole thing could be sponsored. So the whole thing is, it's making the club front of mind in the fans' heads, you know, reminding them who the players are, who the stats were, giving a little bit of trivia. So keeping everything front of mind. So that whole thing was a pivot. I mean, they didn't have a product similar to that. They weren't selling that. They were trying to sell an in-stadium product. Another one of my startups was more of a fan engagement. We sat down and we said, you know, maybe we need to pivot. Maybe we need to focus more on sports betting. And it gave us a chance to step back. You know, we were moving so fast, you know, just go, go, go. This is the product. It's not going to change. Well, now we had some time to actually sit down and say, you know, maybe a better carrot is if we lead with sports betting or something else. So we were able to pivot. As you said on the payments, or the price is a better example. Deferred payments is a great way to go. You know, one thing that I can say I've been through is I've been a consultant the last 18 years, and I lived through 9/11. I was in Manhattan when 9/11 happened. I was actually just starting my consulting career. I was worried that we weren't going to get any work, and the partner's like, oh no, we do fine in a downturn. Now we just help take costs out. You know, all the projects that went from revenue growth projects just become cost cutting projects. You know, there's always work from the consultant standpoint. And we do those projects, and I learned how to structure this. You do those on deferred payments, and you can say, look, pay us later. We'll take the risk. So if you're a startup out there, you know, obviously you need cash, and cash is good, but there might be an opportunity to get in the door and just put some deferred payment process in place, or, you know, put it on
installments
or a performance base, you know, put it on performance base. If you make revenue, take a cut of it. You know, you may not get that. Straight.
Absolutely, that it has to be adjustment
and being creative.
Adjustment to everything we do now, to adjust it to the needs and to the situation that we are in. And you know, in the last Feast conference that you've done, that I was in London, and I remember there was a very nice esport, I would say, section, which I thought was very good. Actual players playing, and, you know, startups in the esports space. Now, first things that came to my mind in terms of esport, this is bloody great opportunity for esports, because, you know, I heard the Formula One now invited, I think you mentioned it, invited great famous drivers to join the esport races.
Yep.
So is it the right time for investors now to even run quicker to invest in esport? What's your take on this?
Yeah, definitely invest in esports.
On the other hand, sorry, just to complete the question. On the other hand, where I heard that some of the publishers in esports are struggling because most of the revenue was based on events, and they need to change. They're struggling, and some of them are really bleeding. So,
yeah, I mean, look, I'm not as crystal clear, but I wouldn't say many of the publishers are struggling, because they were doing great before. But obviously, esports is getting a huge bump here. You saw that the NASCAR event they had, which was the #1 esports on broadcast ever. And that's just, you know, I guess it's people watching. I think it's a left-hand turn. It's just, you know, 4 left-hand turns. And then if you look at, like I said, what they're doing with F1, with famous players, I saw NBA 2K just announced something. I think I saw it last night, with a bunch of NBA players actually playing. You know, all these new formats are coming to life and is being put on broadcast. You know, it's not just on Twitch, because they're looking for content, and those broadcast players are looking for something. But it's not just esports, it's also the simulations. So what the Washington Wizards were doing, I think the Phoenix Suns, they were simulating the rest of their season. I think I just saw somewhere, which, you know, I think it was Sports Radar. So Sports Radar, and then IMG with the tennis tour, they have a product to bet. So you can actually bet now on the simulations. So if you were in the betting space before, betting hasn't stopped. You know, now there's just betting on simulations, or betting on esports is going to become more, you know, advanced or more front and center than it was before. And then there's even new sports that are appearing. You know, there's things out there. There's still sports on TV. I think it's this weekend. Or no, it's actually this weekend coming up, WrestleMania. we can debate whether that's a sport or not, but that's going to go live. And that's going to be the first quote unquote sport that we've had and the whole world's had in a while. And they're going to write the blueprint for how to broadcast something without fans. And they'll be, putting that on. I'm sure all the broadcasters will be watching them, whether they pump in crowd noise, how they change camera angles, whatever they're going to do, but they're going to do something that is going to be pretty unique. And then the other thing is, I was just reading the other day with the TV ratings going down. So ESPN, the timing of this Corona couldn't have come at a worse time. We're at the end of the first quarter. So all the major corporations have to, reveal their earnings, and it's not a good time economically to be revealing, losses. ESPN just announced they were less than 50% down March over March last year. A lot of that deals with the NCAA tournament, but I was surprised it was so high because people are watching more TV now. More people are watching, but what is it that they're watching? And it comes down to that storytelling. It's those TV shows that are really done really well and more storytelling as opposed to a live event. Believe it or not, Philadelphia is not a very big F1 city, but on my sports talk radio, they keep talking about the F1 Drive to Survive. And people are calling up talking about it. You can never get anyone to call up talk about F1 in Philadelphia, but people are actually on the radio talking about F1. That and Tiger King, of course. But everyone's talking about that. But so there's opportunities out there for that quality storytelling that has come about. There's the simulations, which I think we're going to see a lot more of, and then there's esports, and then there's new sports we never heard of. I know a couple of days ago I shared with you the marble racing.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought someone could give marbles a personality? And now there's betting on it. So it's out there. If we go back, I do want to talk about that broadcast. There's a few other technologies I think are going to come.
Yeah, please.
I don't know what you think, but if you're watching a game without fans, some people think it's going to be horrible. And LeBron James, I think his comment was, we can't do it without fans. I think it could be interesting because you're going to hear everything the players say. I would love to watch an NBA game and hear all the trash talk.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, they might have to beep a lot of it out, but you're almost going to feel like you're on the court. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I'm hoping they don't pump in crowd noise. To be honest, I don't know if you've seen yourself, but have you watched a European soccer game without fans? I know they've had games.
Yeah, you hear everything. It's crazy. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. And again, the XFL
every foul look like a red card because you hear the.
You'll hear it. Exactly. I mean, imagine NFL where you're actually going to hear that hit a lot harder. Now they've had mic'd up players before, but you still had all the crowd noise. You still had everything around it. So there's innovation that's going to just naturally come about. I think I was also telling you, now they're showing these replays. So on TV, again, it's storytelling. It's whether it be esports is coming on, but they're also showing old games. In Philadelphia, since we have a lot of losing teams, they're just showing the winning games. So everyone in Philly feels like we're winning every day. They're just showing the wins. But one thing that's interesting is all the commentary that people are doing on, say, Twitter or social media while the game's going on. So I was watching the Villanova game, and I think it was Villanova versus North Carolina, and all the players from Nova were tweeting in and chiming in. You're getting this backstory. I almost felt like I was sitting down watching the game with Archinato and all the other players. So, I mean, things are just naturally coming. No one invented that. No one actually thought to put Twitter together with this and have the actual players participating.
I like it very much, and the direction you're taking now in terms of the opportunities that's suddenly coming up through this no crowd games, and and to make a lemonade out of this lemon in using technologies. And I think I get a sign that we need to start wrapping up here. But overall, if we look at other crises that we had in the past, and nothing is like it, but after the crisis is gone, there is usually a huge coming back. And as we see here, the coming back probably will be different, will have its own pace, but also I think we'll have a new way and new technology orientation. and huge opportunities. The way I see it, I think there is, for the right companies, for the right startups, for the right investors. By the way, we haven't talked about investors. You know, I mentioned in one of my posts that I have a good friend that in every global crisis, he's taking his bag with full of cash and going out to buy, investing in right startups. Startups that you could have invested, they wanted the $20 million valuation, will take money from you now in a much lower valuations.
Absolutely.
And for the right people, there are great investment opportunities. Now, in our virtual accelerator now, we're talking to investors in the last 2 weeks. We have about 40 investors already confirmed they're interested to look at startups now. Now, I'm not sure they will write checks straight away, but they are in the state of mind that this is what it is. Let's see if there are great opportunities to look at, because when market coming back, prices will go up, and then it's a different ballgame. And I think if we're looking at that in this manner, I think you mentioned new games that are coming, new sports that will come in. So, you know, I'm really excited, if I may say, on the opportunities that can come up out of that, bearing in mind that it is what it is, and we would like really to get the best out of it and continue to create to support the ecosystem as we've done so far. So I think, Ryan, this is a good start. I think we can probably continue this maybe in a week's time. We saw that we talked totally bullshit and it's totally different, but at least we shared it outside, and people are welcome to respond, to give your comments, ask your questions. Maybe we'll have a chance to do it again, Ryan.
Yeah, no, looking forward to it. And I guess just to close out, 20 startups out there, like you said, be positive. Now is a great opportunity. Investors are taking calls, clubs are taking calls. Now is a great time to get in front of them. And separate from that, as you know, we're going to be launching the separate accelerators. There's going to be plenty of opportunities out there, things going virtual. And I actually think it might be even better if you're a startup, almost what you started the call with, where people now like used to Zoom, you don't need to have all the travel costs. You know, if you're a startup based in India, you don't need to be flying out to the US. You don't need to be in Europe. You know, you can do a Zoom call like this and it's going to be acceptable. You know, I don't think anyone's going to look down upon you or think, why didn't you come here in person? So there's almost an opportunity. Look at it that way of, you know, cutting back on your travel costs.
Yeah. And this is the same for partners, brands, and clubs, because it's a virtual platform. So people can engage and cover ground and work strategically on that without really thinking about, okay, I need to fly now to New York or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So to wrap up, yeah, I think a great opportunity. I don't think any startups out there should be, you know, oh, woe is me, the world's going to end. It's find the opportunity, rethink your product, extend your runway as much as you can, cut back on the costs, and, you know, get in front of as many people as possible, because they will be investing and clubs will be doing something. It just may not be the same, and it might be on a different payment terms. Great. Amir, thank you.
All right. Ryan, thank you.
Great to talk to you.
Bye for
Good to talk to you again.